Good Will Hunting shouldn't work. It's a small, quiet drama from 1997. No explosions, no twists, no spectacle. It's just two guys talking in rooms. And yet somehow it hits harder than almost anything being made today. The first time I watched it, I wasn't prepared. It felt simple on the surface, but underneath were layers of character, trauma, humour and heart that completely blindsided me. It changed the way I thought about storytelling, and honestly, about people. So why did this tiny film not only succeed, but stick with millions of us for decades? Good Will Hunting started as a college assignment. Matt Damon wrote the first version while studying at Harvard. Then he and Ben Affleck shaped it together in a cramped apartment, pulling from their own lives and the people they grew up around. Hollywood saw potential and immediately tried to ruin it. One studio wanted to turn it into a spy thriller because they didn't think a character drama could sell. But then Robin Williams read the script, connected deeply with the emotional core, especially the bench monologue, and he became the force that protected it. He fought to keep the heart of the film intact. He even took a massive 75% pay cut just to make it happen. Affleck and Damon also found hope in the rise of filmmakers like Tarantino and Sylvester Stallone. Nobodies who pushed their first films into Hollywood by sheer belief and stubbornness. Producers were unsure about letting two unknown writers star in their own script, but that story helped Damon and Affleck convince studios to take the risk. With Williams on board, Miramax finally moved it forward. Gus Van Sant signed on to direct, and what started as a college assignment suddenly became the film that launched two careers and defined another. So before we dive into the characters, let's look at the themes that gives this story its emotional depth and lasting meaning. Themes. Good Will Hunting is packed with meaning, but the themes aren't just clever writing choices. They come directly from Damon and Affleck's life. The people they grew up around, the working class world that they came from, the experiences that shaped them, all of it bleeds into the film. And the biggest theme, the one that drives everything, is trauma versus potential. Will can solve equations that stump world-class mathematicians, but he can't face the scars of his past. His intelligence becomes a shield, a way to stay in control. That "I'm the smartest guy in the room" attitude. It isn't an ego, it's his armor. You'll see it clearly in the early therapy scenes. Will attacks each therapist, gets under their skin and humiliates them, because if he can push them away first, he never has to confront himself. It's a defense mechanism that's disguised as brilliance. Sean sees through this instantly. In their second meeting on the bench, he dismantles Will's whole strategy. "Do you think I know everything about you because I read Oliver Twist?" He forces Will to confront the truth. Intelligence will only get you so far. Emotional honesty is the real challenge. And that leads into another major theme: love as vulnerability. Will pushes Skylar away, not because he doesn't care, but because he cares too much. He's terrified she'll see the parts of him that he can't accept. Sean explains this perfectly when he talks about his wife. The idea that real love requires letting someone see your flaws, your fears, and your history. Will wants connection, but only if it's guaranteed. Only if he can stay in control. Skylar threatens that control, so he runs. The film also digs into the idea of a class divide. Will and his friends come from the working class south side of Boston. Bars, construction sites, garages. Places built on loyalty and survival. Then you have Harvard. Polished, wealthy, structured, privileged. Will assumes that these people look down on him, so he builds a massive chip on his shoulder. It affects every relationship in the film, from Skylar to Lambeau to even Sean at first. These themes are woven into every moment of Good Will Hunting. They give the story weight, texture, and emotional honesty. They create the foundation for what the film is ultimately about: people. Characters. Will Hunting is one of the most compelling characters ever written because he's a contradiction. He's brilliant, confident, quick-witted, and yet completely trapped inside his own mind. Will's intelligence isn't a gift, it's armor. It's how he controls every room he walks into, how he makes sure nobody can hurt him, how he keeps himself safe. Every relationship he has is shaped by this defense mechanism, especially the therapy scenes. The moment he walks into these rooms, he scans the therapist, finds their weaknesses, and destroys them. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear. If he can push them away first, he never has to confront himself. Will doesn't struggle with equations, he struggles with honesty, and that's why he needs someone who can see through him. Sean works because he doesn't fight Will with logic, he fights him with experience. When Will tries his usual tactics, Sean doesn't react, he doesn't get rattled, he doesn't leave. He sits there, he listens, and eventually he breaks through Will's armor. The bench scene is the turning point, not because it's emotional, but because Sean dismantles every illusion Will hides behind. You're just a kid, you don't have the faintest idea what you're talking about. For the first time, Will meets someone who isn't impressed by him, intimidated by him, or fooled by him. Someone who won't let him run. Sean gives Will the one thing he's never had, a safe place to be honest. And of course, the "it's not your fault" scene is the emotional peak of the film. Not just because Will breaks down, but because Sean is finally giving him permission to stop punishing himself. Sean doesn't mentor Will, he heals him. Lambeau is often misread as a villain. He isn't. He genuinely wants Will to succeed, but he only sees half the picture. To Lambeau, Will is a once-in-a-generation mind, a prodigy, someone who owes it to the world to contribute something great. But he never stops to consider that Will might actually need to fix himself before he can save everyone else. Lambeau pushes Will academically, while Sean pushes him emotionally. That conflict creates a core tension of the film. Achievement versus healing. Lambeau sees Will's potential, Sean sees his pain. Both of them are right, but only one of them understands what Will actually needs. Skylar represents the life Will wants, but doesn't believe he deserves it. She's loving, open, genuinely interested in him, and that scares him more than anything else. With his friends, Will never has to pretend. They know him, they accept him, and they don't expect anything from him. But Skylar, she sees a future, she asks real questions, and Will can't let her get close enough to see what he's hiding. Their breakup scene is painful because it's the moment Will's insecurity finally overwhelms him. He tells her he doesn't love her, not because it's true, but because it's easier than telling the truth and being vulnerable. Skylar is the emotional test of the film. She's the person who forces Will to confront the parts of him he spent his whole life avoiding. Will's friends bring something to the story Harvard never could: truth without judgment. Chucky's "best part of my day" speech is one of the most honest moments in the entire film. He tells Will, without exaggeration, that staying in South Boston forever would be a waste of what he's capable of. And unlike Lambeau, he says it without an ego, without pressure, just love. That's why the final shot of Chucky walking up to Will's house and finding the car gone hits so hard. It's not sadness, it's pride. All of these characters, their fears, their relationships, their hidden truths, only work because the film knows exactly how to show them. The camera isn't just recording the story, it's telling us. Cinematography. The cinematography in Good Will Hunting is deceptively simple. There are no money shots, no sweeping set pieces, nothing designed to pull your attention away from the characters, and that's exactly the point. Jean-Yves Escoffier, the film's director of photography, builds the entire visual language around intimacy. Tight close-ups, gentle handheld movements, warm lighting. It all blends together to support the story without ever distracting from it. The camera isn't trying to impress you, it's trying to let you feel what these characters feel. Take Will and Sean's first session. As they speak about Sean's painting, the focus shifts between them, not based on who's speaking, but who holds the emotional weight of the moment. When Will takes control, the lens stays with him. When Sean quietly dismantles Will's defenses, the focus returns to him. These lingering shots give you no escape. They force you to sit in the tension exactly the way the characters do. The bench scene takes this even further. Despite being set in a wide, open public space, the camera moves in closely, pulling us into the conversation that almost feels too personal to witness. Sean is framed openly and warmly, calm, grounded, and confident in what he's saying. Will, meanwhile, is held tighter, more guarded framing, reflecting how uncomfortable and exposed he is in this moment. Gus Van Sant and Escoffier use movement with precision. Emotional scenes are still, patient, as if the camera respects the vulnerability on screen. Comedic or chaotic moments loosen up with handheld shots. Scenes in South Boston feel rougher and textured, while Harvard scenes are smooth and controlled. The visual contrast subtly reinforces the divide between Will's two worlds. There's also a lot of character-based visual storytelling. Will is often framed alone, in corridors, emphasizing isolation. He appears small in academic spaces, reinforcing his imposter syndrome. And then when he's with his friends, the framing relaxes, wider, looser, a visual expression of belonging. Sean is almost always filmed at Will's eye level, establishing equality and mutual respect. Good Will Hunting's cinematography isn't meant to stand out, it's meant to disappear. It keeps you locked onto the performances and the emotions, not the techniques behind them. It's warm, human, and invisible on purpose. And that's why the film still hits just as hard today. Timeless, simple, and incredibly effective. Legacy. Good Will Hunting has left a lasting impression on millions of viewers. It's become a timeless classic, a film with a story of hope behind the scenes and a story of healing on screen. 9 Oscar nominations, 2 wins, Best Supporting Actor for Robin Williams and Best Original Screenplay for Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Those awards didn't just recognise the film, they launched 2 careers. Damon and Affleck went from somewhat unknown actors to Hollywood fixtures almost overnight. The momentum from this script carried them into decades of work, writing, directing, acting, producing, winning awards, and becoming pillars of modern cinema. But the film also cemented the legacy of Robin Williams, a legendary actor and an even more incredible person, someone who deserved every ounce of respect he earned. Good Will Hunting reminded the world that Williams wasn't just a comedic genius. He was capable of extraordinary dramatic depth, and after his passing in mid-2014, his performance here carries even more emotional weight. This film didn't just launch careers, it defined them. Since then, Good Will Hunting has become a comfort film for millions. It's inspired people to seek therapy, open up, and face their own trauma. And it hasn't aged because its themes haven't aged. It's about people, not trends. Every generation that watches it finds something new to connect with. So why does it still matter? For me, Good Will Hunting represents hope, inspiration, and comfort. The story behind its creation motivates me in my own career, and the story within the film has genuinely shaped how I think about people, trauma, and connection. It's a film that helps people, a film that finds them wherever they are. It's incredibly rare for a movie to mean this much to its audience, but this one does, and that's a testament to great filmmaking, great writing, and the humanity at its core. Good Will Hunting still matters because it feels honest, because it's hopeful, intimate, and real, because it's timeless, and honestly, it's pretty close to perfection.